All right, welcome to another episode of Bare Bones. My name is Mason West, Doctor of Physical Therapy, and today I am lucky enough to have another doc in the house. It is my pleasure to introduce Dr. Michael Risher, chiropractor extraordinaire. A little background on him before we get him fully introduced. He was a Division III All-American defensive back at Wheaton College as a senior. There he also completed his bachelor's degree in applied health science, and then after graduation, accomplished a lifelong dream of riding his bicycle from San Francisco to Boston. I could never do that. That's insane. And earned his doctorate of chiropractic with clinical excellence honors from Palmer Chiropractic College West. Currently, owner of the Rehab Lab in Chicago, Illinois, and you may not realize it, but he has had a hand in the rehab and performance training of a good number of professional athletes, specifically some of your Chicago Bears. How you doing, Michael?
I'm doing great. Having a great Thursday. Busy day at the office, but excited to be here.
So I'm going to start this off with a pretty big loaded question. What is your philosophy when it comes to working with your clientele?
Yeah, so I essentially have buckets that I place people in. Are you in the pain bucket where we have to get you out of pain? Or are you in the performance bucket where we are taking what you're doing now and looking at how we can improve that? So anytime someone comes in, I kind of place them, categorize them in one of those two buckets. The goal is to get people from that pain bucket, to get their pain healed, and then put them into the performance bucket. Part of the performance bucket is minimizing injury risk, making sure that nagging injury doesn't come back. And then whatever their athletic goal is, maybe their goal is just to be able to play with their kids, without being in pain when they bend over to pick them up. How can we improve that performance? So that's kind of my philosophy. There is, how can we get you from that pain model into the performance model? And then what can we do to improve your performance in whatever you happen to be doing?
Yeah, I was going to say, that's something that I'm dealing with too, right? Like that, when those two buckets start to meld together and where that line is, how do you personally deal with it when someone might get stuck kind of bouncing between those two?
I try to identify goals. What's your goal? Is for the athletes? Is your goal to just be able to play on Sunday, or is your goal to be better in 3 months from now and not have any setbacks in 3 months from now? And whatever the goals are, that dictates how quickly we progress things. Because if someone kind of is bouncing back and forth, like, okay, I'm feeling better, and then a little bit of injury sets them back. It's like, okay, maybe we're looking at this in too micro of a scale. Maybe we're looking at this and something where you want to be better week to week so that you can do something next week. But if you zoom out and look at your year and look at your life, maybe it's much more important to really, work on the pain side of things for 3, 4, 5 months, and then you'll be able to really hit your performance in stride and not fluctuate back and forth. So I think looking at what the true goals are, and then kind of zooming in or zooming out based on what their goals are. That's how I've typically done it. And that when people can change their perspective just slightly, that's really where we see them, start to get it rehab wise.
That's awesome. I absolutely love it. When you look at your social media, or I've had an opportunity to work with you a couple times, which has been awesome. You always push fascia training, and that's something that a lot of people don't understand and have no idea what that concept is. Can you dive into what that truly means for someone like your everyday individual, and then obviously also leading to some of your high level athletes?
Yeah. So if you think about, well, first, fascia is it's a connective tissue that's highly innervated. It surrounds every single piece of your body. So if you take away all of your bones, muscles, organs, blood vessels, everything, and just leave the fascia, you'd have a perfect outline of your body. The other thing that you'll notice about fascia is it's continuous. So where one muscle ends, bicep starts and ends, fascia is continuous along the entire arm. It does not end. It's continuous. And so that's kind of those are the defining features of fascia. And so the way that I like to talk about it is if you picture your body as a car and muscles are your engine, muscles what makes you go, the fascia is your suspension system. And so what we're doing is you can go strength train all you want. You can have them build the most powerful engine that you want. But if your suspension system sucks, then you're more prone to car breaking down, then you're more prone to injury, and your performance actually decreases. So what we're looking for with fascia training is to, work on neural pathways, collagen tissue formation, and how can we tune up your body's suspension system so that there's no leakage of force as you're accomplishing tasks. There's just continuous flow from foot to glute, from glute to ab, from abs to shoulders, like whatever that chain happens to be. How can we tune up your suspension system so that there are no energy leaks?
Oh, that's fantastic. When you're dealing with someone, it again doesn't matter if it's a high school athlete, college, or even someone who just wants to play pickup basketball on the weekend, right? We often get asked, I know I do, I'm sure you do too, like, what is athleticism? How do you train that? So for you, what is your definition of athleticism?
That's a tricky one, because you look at someone that's maybe like a weight room warrior and you'd be like, wow, that person's a freak athlete. And then you look at someone who maybe they've never touched a weight in their life, but they're balling on the basketball court and you're like, wow, that's a freak athlete. And so I think athleticism is really your body's output, your body's maximum output in the sphere that you want to be in. So you can be an amazing football player and be an incredible athlete. You can be an amazing power lifter and be an incredible athlete. So I think when we think of athleticism, we have to look at what is the desired expression. And the desired expression is how we measure athleticism.
Oh, like it's like you're saying, it just flows in and out of what that individual wants to do. How would you look at it then for someone who can flow in and out of multiple different sports through different planes, someone who can go from weight room to football field, but then at the same time go to a bowling alley and somehow still, almost bowl a perfect game?
Yeah, that's where you get into the freakiest of freaks, because you can be a very good athlete and be really good at one thing, but when your athleticism transcends a bunch of different spheres, that's where it gets really, really exciting to work with you. I find that there's a big mental component to that too. And I know we're going to talk about Justin, but you go out and you watch Justin play football and you're like, wow, this dude's a beast. Then you watch him in the weight room and you're like, dang, this dude's a freak. And then he'll go out and he'll beat everybody at bowling. And so it's like, all right. And he's playing on a Puerto Rican team. He gets recruited to play on a Puerto Rican team for baseball when he's in youth baseball. And so it's like, you have this athlete that is going to be one of the best in the world at whatever he picks up. It just matters. All that matters is what he decides to do. So I think when you find someone that's truly a transcendent athlete, I think, there are a bunch of guys like that. LeBron's like that too. That's where you see like, okay, no longer are you just a very good athlete in your sphere, but you are like a super athlete.
And then so kind of the other side of that, back to the original bucket, what would you say is the biggest paucity, the biggest gap when it comes to, let's say, training athletes, right? What are they missing the most? And then kind of opposite side of that coin, is there really such a thing as injury prevention?
Yeah, so I want to touch on the injury prevention real quick, because I think injury prevention is a myth. And you and I have talked on this, a handful of times. Injury prevention is a myth, especially in sports. There are so many outside variables. And so I much prefer the term risk mitigation or injury risk mitigation, or injury, like sports preparation, anything other than prevention, because prevention is, hard stop, like, no, this won't happen. But mitigation means we're decreasing the chances that this happens. There are too many outside forces in football to say, oh, you'll never get injured. We're preventing your injury from happening. But if we prepare your body the right way, then we can say, we're drastically reducing the chance of you getting injured in this game. And that's very important. Anyone that's preaching complete injury prevention is preaching something that doesn't exist. And then, as soon as you get injured and someone's saying, oh, we're doing injury prevention stuff. Oh, you must not have done our stuff the right way. And then now it's my fault that I didn't implement what you're saying right because I got injured. No, that's obviously not true. So that's my thought on injury prevention. I don't know if you have anything to add. Say it again
for those in the back. It's such a pet peeve of mine, and I just needed you to say it too.
It's catchy. It's just kind of a sexy thing to say, but injury prevention and full stop prevention, that's got to be a myth. And our goal is to reduce risk. And that's the best thing that we can do. And then the initial question is kind of what do most athletes need? What are they missing? How do you determine that? I've actually kind of found a sliding scale of athletes, and again, you get the transcendent athletes when they cross multiple spheres of this. So like Khalil Mack fits every characteristic of both ends of the spectrum, and that's what makes him such a transcendent athlete. And so I think it's this sliding spectrum of you have fast and twitchy but tight, or slow and a good mover, right? And I know you can identify like where someone's at along that scale. And so what we want to do is we want everyone to be a Khalil Mack, right? We want everybody to be a Khalil Mack. We want you to be explosive, fast, and move well. But if you are here and you are like, I am explosive and twitchy, but I don't move well, then it's like, okay, well, obviously we work on the mobility. And if you're here and you're like, I move really well, but I'm not explosive, then we work on your explosiveness. As soon as you start to fall into the middle category, which is, everybody, then it's like, all right, what is your goal? If you're a wide receiver and you're slow or on the slower end, maybe we need to focus on explosiveness and top end speed. Or if you're a wide receiver and your hips suck, maybe that's what we need to focus on. So again, and we're going to go back to what we said at the beginning. It's what is your goal? What is your position? What is your goal? And then where do you kind of fit on that scale? And that scale helps us identify the direction we need to move you in to kind of widen your ability to perform. We want you to be explosive, twitchy, and move well.
I'm really glad you said that. It's always tough because you'll have someone come in and they say, well, I want him. They give you the laundry list of stuff. And it's like, all right, well, you don't really fit this, or this. You may not be able to do everything. Let's enhance the things that you absolutely can do that you can be like, excel A+ at. And then the other things might be able to be kind of that secondary aspect. And it's hard for, I think, a lot of fans to understand that too, because they look at these athletes as these monumental figures and understanding that within the athlete, there are these spectrums. There's fast and then there's like hella fast, and you may not be hella fast.
Right.
So moving on, another kind of definition question, and this is coming up a lot right now with, Justin having the game that he had last week. And, some people are going nuts over it. I'm one of the nuts people right now fawning over what he did. And then you have other people who are saying, great, he's a running back. What is your definition of a quarterback in today's modern NFL?
Yeah, I think I think this is fits within a broader spectrum of question. Is I think the NFL is moving more towards an amoeba-like offense where everyone does everything. And so I think the future of quarterback, if you cannot use your leg, like the era of just being a pocket passer is dead. Like Peyton Manning's don't come around. Tom Brady's don't really come around. You look at, who are the best quarterbacks in the NFL right now? And every single one of them, they may not be a 4-4 guy, but they are a running threat, even down to Aaron Rodgers, right? Aaron Rodgers may have lost a step or he's not as fast, but he's always been a guy that can use his legs. So I think if you're looking at, a quarterback as just someone who sits back and is a pocket passer, you are no longer looking at an NFL quarterback. Everybody has to be able to use their legs in some capacity. And if you can't, you're not necessarily going to fit into this NFL. And so anyone that has a problem with Justin Fields running the ball a lot, it's just because you haven't caught up to the times of this amoeba positionless football where Cordero Patterson can be a running back, where he can be a kick returner, where he can be, a wide receiver, where Deebo Samuel can line up at any position, where George Kittle can line up at any position. You're missing the evolution of football to where everyone has such a well-rounded skill set that you're able to use them in a bunch of different spots. If Justin Fields can't run, he's got less of a chance of success in the NFL because he has to avoid these, defensive linemen that are breaking through the offensive line at a rapid pace. You have to be able to use your legs now. So a quarterback is someone, who can run and throw the ball. Most of the wide receivers cannot throw the ball. Most of the running backs cannot throw the ball. Quarterback may not be, a nuanced power back or, but they're someone who can run, have to run, and then are also able to throw the ball accurately.
Yeah, for me, it always boils down to all that phrase evolve or die almost, right? Where the NFL is evolving. And if you refuse as a commentator, as a coach, even, or what the case may be, to evolve along with it, you're going to get left behind because guys like Justin are changing the game, to say the least.
Absolutely. Even guys like Patrick Mahomes. Patrick Mahomes is, he's not the fastest guy, but he is going to run. He's going to score rushing touchdowns. If he gets outside of the pocket, you always consider him a threat to tuck the ball and run. He's not as much of a running threat as Justin, but there's different people on the spectrum. So look at the guys that can't run. Matt Stafford right now, he's not having a great year. Teams have, started to figure him out in some capacity. And just because he has Cooper Kupp doesn't mean that team's going to have crazy success. Tom Brady having a rough year. All of these quarterbacks, all of these teams that are playing well have a quarterback that can run and move in some capacity.
Absolutely. And I may be understating things, but Chicago finally, by extension, the national media has caught that Justin Fields fever, I would say. Who is Justin? Is he the same guy you see during the press conferences? Because he seems like a pretty almost solemn guy. It's very serious. And then you catch those glimpses on the sideline where he's joking around. You catch a little glimpse on the social media, whether it's him posting or someone else, where you see that smile finally crack. So who is Justin?
I mean, I would say he's the same guy that you always see. Like, I just saw a press conference, whatever, today or yesterday or something, where they open up to questions and nobody's got a question. He jokes with the media like, all right, you guys don't have any questions? Am I done here? Like that sort of thing. But there'll be days where, it goes 30 minutes and we just don't talk, and it's totally fine because he's, I'm working on my craft. He's studying whatever, like he's super intense. He's super intentional. But like when it comes down to it, he's hilarious too. Like you maybe have to get him in the right mood and stuff, but he's super funny. He'll mess with you. He'll rib you. It's, awesome guy. And I think that's one of my favorite things of working with all of these Bears players is all of them are awesome guys. There's not a single person that's like, nah, this guy sucks as a person. Like they're all great people. And I genuinely enjoy every, time I get to work with them. But Justin, same guy you see, even keeled, super intense. And then, as you get to know him, as you start to have fun with football, that goofy side, that fun side starts to pop out as well.
I think it's fair to say for any profession, right? If you're a plumber and every time you go to this one job that there's this leak that just won't stop and it just every day of dealing with that, like, yeah, you're going to come off as probably a little cranky sometimes. You're going to be frustrated because you're good at your job, but for some reason it's just not working. So when things start flowing and that leak stops, things get better, right?
Absolutely. And you've seen, I mean, this past game looked like the happiest I've seen Justin on the sideline. They didn't win the game, but the offense is having a ton of success. And then you look at the defense and it's vice versa. All the defensive guys who started out, that game against the Patriots, everybody on defense is having fun. And then now you look at them and it's like, well, shoot, it's not fun to get destroyed on defense. It's not fun to get destroyed on offense. What you see on camera is going to be dictated a lot by what's happening in the here and now. Like that happens to everybody.
And now what we're going to do, we're going to throw up a clip that everyone just absolutely loves, right? And this is played 1,000 times. There are so many little things that go on in this play. I mean, you and I talked about a couple of them off camera a bit. And throw this up, right, run through, and then we're going to break down some of the things that happen in here that Justin's able to do.
Yeah.
Look how you found the couple I am with my technology.
I mean, it's just freaky.
So let's look at that, right? Let's look back. What are you working on that has led to he was built in a lab? But what are you guys usually doing on a day-to-day, weekly basis that leads to plays like this?
Yeah, so we're doing a ton of spinal rotation. So if you see his ability there to, all right, I'm gonna create torque here, and then I can I can throw the ball, but instead of throwing the ball, I can also generate that torque into downfield momentum. So we do a ton of med ball tosses that kind of just help his expression of power. Right there, he's got a ton of power torqued up, but nope, I can control that. I can bring it back in and then translate that, getting vertical downfield. The other thing that we work on is we do a lot of jumps into runs. So his like, okay, I'm in the air into a dead sprint. That's something that we do on a weekly or every other week basis. Like that little hop in the air and hit the ground running. That's not his first time doing that. Obviously, you can't do every single in-game scenario, but we've done that sort of stuff before where it's like, all right, single leg bound into a sprint or lateral jump into a sprint or, whatever it may be. So I think in these situations, you default to your level of training. And if his body has done these things before, he's more efficient at, converting them on field. And then you talk about it's not like he has to juke. He's just weaving in and out. He's got so much power in his legs. And then our big focus is on top speed for him. So we make sure we're tracking his top speed, make sure he's breaking 20 miles an hour every single week in practice. And if he's not, then he gets his top speed sprints in as well. And that's why he's able to, hit this long speed like he does. So really that rotational power, that transfer of force from, throwing to running, and then that ability to just get upfield, those are all like focuses. When I saw that play and I watched the replay, I was like, oh yeah, none of that is surprising that he's able to do all of those things. I've seen him do them in his basement, obviously in a very controlled setting. And he put it all together in a mindless, effortless flow state where it just flowed out of him and his body defaulted to, his base level of training, which, I feel like he's in a really good spot with.
And then the other thing we looked at too was I loved this view just because it shows what you see from a lot of those top level, like for example, sprinters. You'll see hurdlers who are in the Olympics, those people who have that amazing cervical control. When you look at how little his head moves, he's able to maintain that torso position on this straightaway run, there's no loss of power here. It's fantastic.
Yeah, and a big thing that we've been working on
is pretty astounding. Like just that he can just translate that.
A big thing that we've been working on is that thoracic CT junction mobility. So if you ever look at him in when he's not in pads, he's pretty up high. He's got big traps and he's pretty up high. So we've been working on that mobilization up here so that when he runs, he's not high and tight, that his arms can be nice and loose, and you see that translate beautifully on that run. We're working on, his suboccipital muscles regularly, so he's got great proprioception up there. We're working on improved range of motion and then controlling that range of motion in his thoracic spine as well as his CT junction. So, it's fun to see him excel at the things that, he's just a freak athlete. Like nothing I'm doing is going to make him able to do that, but what we're going to try and do is make each of those plays easier.
One thing I didn't send you this question, so I apologize ahead of time, but I'm throwing this at you. But you see it all the time with a lot of these guys when they're talking about some of the linemen. I know Justin does, has the ankle tape on there, and they're like, a lot of people think, okay, cool, that's it. I'm gonna have my ankle stay. I have to wear like a high rise shoe, something of that nature. How important is it still for someone like him to work on that foot, the intrinsics, the stability, the mobility and flexibility of those ankles, even though they're locked into the tape or what may have you?
I mean, he trains barefoot all the time. Like we don't wear shoes all off season. When he was down in Atlanta, he was training barefoot. So it's supremely important. And he knows that, there have been a handful of conversations that we've had where he feels like just the foot training, just the foot to glute has really helped him, minimize the risk. And in some instances, definitely prevent an injury. Not injury generally. But in some instances, he's like, no, I know I felt this, and I know that what we were doing here directly impacted this play and influenced me having a much less severe injury than I could have had. So there's, he's training barefoot regularly. The whole off season, he was training barefoot. It's super important for some of these guys to, for all of these guys to maintain full foot function.
Again, thank you for saying that. I'm constantly talking to my patients, right? Especially some of those higher level athletes. You need to be able to connect to the ground with your foot.
Yeah.
The shoes nowadays are the worst thing they've ever been. I mean, yes, you can get some good ones, but a lot of us don't. We like the fancy Nikes or the Jordans or whatever the case may be that just don't let your foot do what it's supposed to do. So, the fact that you're integrating that and the fact that he's feeling it, that's even better, right? The fact that he can just feel so locked in to the ground and to what he's doing with his own body.
Yep. And I'll give you these 4 guys anytime we train, we're doing some form of a barefoot training, even if it's, on turf, Darnell's catching jugs. There'll be times where he's catching jugs and he's just barefoot. Anytime we're doing like actual weight training, he's barefoot. Eddie Jackson, anytime we're doing any sort of training, he's barefoot. David Montgomery, he's barefoot. All of these guys that you see, remaining fairly uninjured. If they get an injury, it's, they bounce back pretty quickly. They're doing a lot of barefoot training. At least anytime I'm with them, we don't wear shoes. So I think there's a non-zero chance that's helping their performance and, reducing their injury risk.
And you just said, right, injury prevention is a fallacy. Injury mitigation is the way that we're mainly going. With the increase in scrambles, QB design runs that Justin's been doing, what are some of the things that y'all are doing to improve Justin's injury mitigation, especially for an athlete that's just that powerful?
Mm-hmm. So we're, he's not taking any unnecessary hits right now. That's the biggest thing is he knows when he needs to take a hit and he knows when he should not take a hit. And he did not last year. And his body was feeling it, and we talked about it. And he's like, "Yeah, I know exactly when I need to get down. I'm not trying to take any of those hits." The other piece is, we're doing soft tissue work 3 to 6 times a week. So it's not like I just finished a game and my body feels fine for the next week. It's like, it could be Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then you go play your game Sunday. And we've done something every single day. Some weeks less than, but the amount of work that he's doing on his body, not even just with me, like he's seeing me, and he's doing a bunch of other stuff. Everyone, goes and gets their massages and stuff. But like the amount of time and energy and effort that he's putting into his body to recover each week is absolutely insane. I think there's a reason that he's significantly healthier this year, is because he's fully taken that seriously and realizes that, and I hear this on the radio all the time, like, oh yeah, Justin's longevity. And it's like, you don't understand how good his body feels at this point in the season. After how many games are we in? 9-10 games?
Yeah,
after this many, going into week 10 for his body to feel where it's at right now is absurd. Like I cannot describe to you how good of shape he is in at this point in the season. And they still have a bye week. Like, people that are obviously freak things can happen, but people that are like, oh, what's up with Justin's longevity? Like, he's totally fine. There's nothing to worry about outside of, you can never prevent injury if there, freak things happen, but like, he's not putting himself under extra wear and tear by his play. He's just not.
And so obviously this is going to be different for every sport, every individual person, position wise is going to be different. What is, in your opinion, what is the optimal schedule for these kinds of extra workouts during the season? Is it more about maintenance for you, or are you really still adding in a lot of those extra functional strength, especially, they already have their practices, they have their training sessions they're doing, and they're doing this extra stuff. So how do you view that?
Yeah. So last year I called Bobby Stroop, who works with Patrick Mahomes. And he kind of gave me Patrick's, in-season training schedule and what he does. And so Justin and I last year, we were like, hey, do you want to do that? And he said, absolutely. So we put him on the exact same training schedule as Patrick Mahomes. This year, they've changed some things just within the organization. So I actually have to do less. I really like this strength and conditioning staff. I really like the stuff that they do. Last year, I had to have him ask for his top speeds every week. Now they provide that all for the guys. Like, everybody knows their top speed during the week. Everybody knows their top speed during the game. And that is something that we chart just to make sure we're doing enough. And obviously when he runs 21 miles an hour mid-season, that, he's hitting the right amount of volume. So like this new staff has been absolutely phenomenal. And they asked Justin, what did you do last year that worked really well for you? And how can we incorporate that? So they took some of the stuff that we did last year that we had to add in extra, or I said, hey, Justin, you have to go get extra sets of this. And they've incorporated that into his schedule. So right now his schedule looks like a Monday lift with the team. That's a lower body. A Tuesday with me, if he's not too sore, then we do a lot of concentric, a lot of flush, a lot of things that you can do minimal volume, get a pump, but not leave you feeling too sore. It's really the eccentric part that leaves you feeling sore. So a lot of sled pushes, a lot of sled drags, just that concentric part. And then we'll do some, low level plyos, making sure he gets some jumps in, making sure he gets some med ball tosses in. And then I believe it's Wednesday or Thursday, they have another lift. And then if by Friday he has not hit 3 top speed reps in practice, he has 3 top speed sprints where he's, hitting top speed. If he's hit 20 miles an hour plus already in practice a couple times, then he doesn't need to add any extra because they do run those run plays with him. But if he hasn't had that volume, then on Friday he hits his extra 3 sprints, and then he's good Saturday, Sunday, Monday lift again.
That's like so cool, and it's awesome that what your input was able to translate a little bit. And one of the biggest things I just took from that too is, and you hear this floating around all the beginning of this year, how much of the Bears bought into Justin. I mean, they're asking for his opinion, they're integrating that into the system and what they're doing. Mm-hmm. Sounds like they're pretty damn bought in.
I would say so. I mean, I haven't had any conversation with anyone there, but I just, based on what everyone's telling me, they love the staff. And I think the staff can't help but love Justin. He's putting in all this work and he's improving like crazy right before their eyes. And, whatever's going to make his body feel the best, that's what the organization is going to have the most success with. And so I think, adding in, even if it's just an exercise or 2, even if it's just making sure you hit a heavy set of back, and making sure that's just incorporated once a week, then, that's a very, very simple thing to do to make sure that your quarterback's operating optimally. And then I don't have to, he doesn't have to go in and do any extra, like all the volume is so utterly controlled that it's like, all right, what can we do that won't affect your volume, that will just give you just enough stimulus to, keep improving physically.
And so you touched on, that's really the first time we've talked about anything more upper body, like heavily. We talked about the neck and rotation a bit in terms of thoracic spine, but we talked about back. What about shoulder? What does it look like maintaining, shoulder health, especially mainly limiting throw? It's not like, yes, he's not ripping off 70 passes a game. I think Mahomes had like something crazy like 64 last game, which is nuts. But like, so what does that process look like for you guys?
So we'll do a little bit of shoulder health. He's really good about doing a ton on his own. So I don't have to add a ton more than, let's get some mobility and let's stretch you. Let's make sure that your rotator cuff's strong. I do reactive muscle testing. So we'll test the reactivity of muscles. And so we really just kind of check function, check range of motion, check soreness, and then go. So it's kind of like an ongoing, how does he feel throughout the week? Maybe, on Wednesday he threw a little bit more and we got to do a little bit more work on his shoulder. So it's not anything that's like set in stone. It's how does we'll do an objective range of motion test. Does your shoulder have that range of motion that you need? Great. Where are you sore? Okay. Eliminate that. And then, keep moving on.
So you mentioned range of motion. How much range of motion does he need?
I don't know how much he needs. He has a ton of, he needs a lot of internal rotation. So if we find any restriction, most of the time it's in internal rotation. So you watch him, he gets a ton of torque on his shoulder. So I don't know exactly. He's, at least at 180 degrees of, shoulder rotation. I don't have the exact numbers because it's, at this point, it's a lot more based on feel for him.
And stuff, yeah.
But like his internal rotation is the big one that, like, if there's a restriction just because of how he throws and how much internal rotation and torque he gets, that's the one that we have to make sure, and really for all throwers, but just if you look at his range of motion and how he throws and how he loads up his shoulder, that internal rotation has to, remain adequate. If the internal range of motion suffers, then his throwing motion will suffer. And he's fine. He hasn't had that issue. But that's the big one that I make sure that we check is like, does he have that adequate internal range of motion or internal rotation?
So happy you brought that up in terms of the internal rotation. I don't know if you've ever had this, but I've had a couple throwing athletes come in, and they're always, they've talked about previous places. They've looked at my external, like this is my range of my external rotation, external. It's like, it's fine. You have fantastic external rotation. That is not your problem. You need the internal rotation in order for the end of that torque range. And so thank you for highlighting that. It's great to hear.
Yeah. For all throwing athletes, but like we have for NFL players, we have the benefit of pictures and slow motion and replays and stuff. And so you can see what ranges these players need most. And then you can make sure that those are adequate and that control is there. And, the video that we have and pictures that we have is, incredibly useful for this job.
Oh, it makes it so much easier, right? And so right now there's been a big shift, I would say, in the health community, whether you're talking about personal trainers, chiropractic, physical therapy, what the case may be, where there's such a heavy emphasis now on flexibility and mobility. What is your personal definition of flexibility versus mobility? And then how do you integrate that into some of your sessions?
Yeah. So I think flexibility is great. Just how far can you stretch? That's awesome. Like you need access to the range of motion to have that. But mobility to me would be, how do you control that range of motion? And so whenever we do something flexibility wise, we make sure that after you gain the range of motion, you can now control your body in that range of motion. I know FRC, just one example of, can I control my body at end range? It doesn't matter. I mean, if you can throw your arm back as far as you want, that's awesome. But if you don't have any strength in that range, then your expression of that range of motion, it means nothing, right? You have to be able to express strength in that range of motion. You have to be able to express your body and your sport in those ranges of motion. And so anytime we do that, it's okay. Yeah, sure. Passive stretching can be a super helpful tool, but if we passive stretch and then you don't have control over that newfound range of motion, then you're opening yourself up to injury. So it's always, control in the range of motion. While range of motion gives you access, you need control over that access.
And kind of final thought here with Justin. What separates Justin as an athlete, a football player, and ultimately as a person?
I mean, his work ethic is absolutely insane. All professional athletes work hard. I'm not going to say that there's anyone out there that doesn't work hard at what they do. Some of them work incredibly hard, harder, like above and beyond the Call of Duty. And so Justin's putting in more effort than 99% of people in the NFL, in my opinion. I've worked with a lot of NFL players. They all put in effort. I think Justin is in the top 1% of NFL players in effort. The other places, his aptitude is incredibly high. If he learns something, if he learns a range of motion, he can describe that back to me. He can describe how he's going to implement that. And then he can recount to me later how he felt that same range of motion show up in a game. And so his aptitude, like everyone has a different definition of intelligence, whatever, IQ, EQ, however you want to measure it. His aptitude, his ability to remember something and then put it into practice, and then after the fact describe how that felt, that's different than a lot of people. He just very much implements and then revisits and then implements and then revisits and implements and revisits. And that, again, is one of the things that puts him in that upper echelon of effort. I think that shows on the field. The more and more reps he gets, the better and better he gets. And then he's also very, I'm not going to say like, he's a really great critic of himself. He's not out here trying to sugarcoat what he does well versus what he doesn't and only focus on what he does well. He's, working on the things that he doesn't do well, and he understands, his own shortcomings to the point where he's actively trying to improve those. And as you can see, he is actively improving those things. So he's not someone that's just going to sit back here and be like, I'm a better athlete than everyone. I can run around everyone, and I don't have to worry about passing as well. I don't have to worry about the short intermediate routes. I'm like, hey, what happened on this play? And he's like, oh, my timing was wrong on XYZ thing, and that's a footwork thing that I need to get figured out. Or, like there's always a thing where he's like, no, I didn't do this right, and I'm going to improve that thing. And then you watch him improve just like he said he would.
I think you see that all the time with athletes of all levels, where especially when you've always been the best in the room, it's really easy to look outwardly and say, well, this is where they didn't do it. This is where they didn't do it. It's refreshing to hear that he's constantly looking inwardly. And you are right. You're seeing that on the field. You're seeing that translate. And the fact that you're getting a front row seat to that on a daily basis is pretty amazing.
Yeah, it's a lot of fun. And that's not to say that other people can't improve. He recognizes, his teammates recognize, like everybody has that room for improvement. But you see, at least outwardly, you see like a lot of criticism of teammates in the NFL. He's never going to be one that criticizes his teammate. He may say, hey, they did this, I was expecting this, or they should have done this. But then there's also the same, but I need to do XYZ thing, right? You can acknowledge that someone else needs to improve while not dismissing yourself. And I think he does an excellent job of that. So yeah, I think he's I'm a big fan of him as a player and as a person.
Final and I think most important question: how badly do some of the guys beat you when y'all go bowling, or can you hold your own?
It kind of depends. It kind of depends. Darnell is very good. Justin is very good. David is very good. So I know David's taken a couple lessons. They all have their own bowling ball and stuff. So these guys are very good. I'm much less consistent. Mm-hmm. On any given game, I may have a chance to compete with them. But if we play 3 in a row, I'm not going to win all 3. I'm not going to, they're going to beat me more times than I'm going to beat them.
Okay, well at least you're showing up and you're actually giving your all. And there's a couple of games you might steal, right? There's always the one.
Exactly. But here's the other thing. I work with a handful of professional bowlers. Yeah, those guys are legit. There's a 13-year-old that I work with, and he's already starting to compete in these professional bowling, these PBA tour tournaments. And you want to talk about Justin and Darnell and David like being good bowlers. This guy will never lose to any of that. They won't come within 30 pins of him.
That is so cool.
And he's 13.
I love when you see that. And there's just so much room, right, for more growth if he wants it.
Oh yeah. Oh, you're gonna hear about him one day. The Black Unicorn is his name, Josh Weems. I mean, I know this is a Bears podcast, but like maybe the most impressive athlete that I work with is Josh Weems. His 13-year-old bowler. You're gonna know about him. Even if you're not a bowler, you're gonna know about him in a couple of years.
I may have to start a little bowling segment every other week or something like that. But Thank you so much. I'm throwing your Twitter information right here, as well as Instagram. If you're not following this guy, you absolutely need to. He's got good nuggets here and there that he throws out. When I saw you had the one tweet, something along the lines of, a lot of times I'll start a tweet and then just delete it. And it's like, man, I wish you just sent more of that stuff, because I love your content both on Twitter and on Instagram. If you're listening, that's at Dr. Risher for Twitter. Instagram is dr.michaelrisher. And then where else can people find you? Where can they work with you? And your amazing wife, because you work directly with her too, right?
Yeah, so my wife is also a chiropractor. We have the Rehab Lab Chicago downtown. It's in Bucktown. And, hopefully we'll be expanding locations at some point, but you can check us out at rehablabchicago.com. Love to work with you. If you have injuries, if you want to work on performance, we'd absolutely love to. And then I do have my online training program. It's called Movement Code. And we basically took all of our fascial training that we do with athletes and in office and put it into an online program. So even if you're not in the Chicagoland area and you want to do some of this training, these exercises it may not be the exact workout that, Justin and Mooney and Eddie are doing on like a day-to-day basis, but all of the exercises are ones that I take those guys through. And then in the off season, this is essentially the training program that I I put through when we're doing fascial training. So I use it with my pro athletes. I use it with, my moms who just want to run a 5K, and it's awesome. So if you do want to work with me, and you can't get to the office, I do have that online option now, which is it's a ton of fun.
And I can say firsthand, I had a scapular rib issue that I just couldn't get to. I couldn't deal with on my own. Popped in for a session, and it took care of it pretty much right away. It was awesome. It was a great experience. And anytime that I have something that pops up like that, I mean, Dr. Risher is my first call. So
I appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for popping on. This was amazing.
Yeah.
I know everyone's gonna love listening to this. And hopefully we're looking at a win against the Lions, right?
Oh yeah, absolutely. Count it right now. Chalk it up.
All right. So again, if you want to see some of the visuals we used on here, check out the YouTube channel. If you want to catch us later and you're on the road, check out Spotify, iTunes, all the places that it's located. But bear down, everybody.
Bear down.